Okay, we're now logged into our cPanel, and most of the DNS changes that we're going to do are going to be made in the Simple DNS Zone Editor. That's found under the Domains heading. So go ahead and click Simple DNS Zone Editor. The first thing you need to do is select which domain you're going to be working with. I have a testing domain called InMotionDNSTesting.com, and that's the domain name that we're going to run some tests on. So I'm going to click that. And when you do, it drops down to forms: how to add an A record and how to add a CNAME record. Now in this tutorial we're not going to go over what those records are. We're just going to assume that you're working with a developer or a programmer who's asked that you set these specific records. At the bottom of the page you'll see certain records that are already in place. For example, we have mail.inmotiondnstesting.com. That's a CNAME. We've got arecordtests.inmotiondnstesting.com. That's an A record. Also notice that A records point to IP addresses, while CNAMEs point to host names. So if you wanted to add an A record, you would type in the name first. So let's put in test2A record.inmotiondnstesting.com. And then from here you would type in the IP address that you've been advised to put in. So for this example, we'll put 205.134.238.119 and then hit Add A Record. And after we've done that, it'll take a moment because it's got to update your DNS settings, but it should show at the bottom here. So we have test2A record.inmotiondnstesting.com. So it shows the A record has it's been added. If you ever need to, you can obviously just click delete, and that'll delete that record. Same thing for the CNAME records. You could type in cnametest.inmotiondnstesting.com, and then you could just type in whatever CNAME record that you need to put in, what the host name is. For example, inmotiontesting.com, and then just hit Add CNAME record. And again, once it's finished adding the record, you'll see it at the bottom. For example, cnametest.inmotiontesting.com. The type, it's a CNAME, and it points to this host name. The next thing we're going to talk about is how you can modify or add text records. Now, we've been working with a test account called InMotionTesting.com, and this is on a shared server. Unfortunately, the Simple DNS Zone Editor does not allow you to work with text records. So if you have a text record that you need to work with, you'll have to contact our support department. For example, you can submit an email request and ask that we set up a specific text record for you. I do, however, have another cPanel open up here. It is for a VPS server, and our VPS and dedicated servers have the Advanced DNS Zone Editor in addition to the simple one. So if you go to the Advanced DNS Zone Editor, again for VPS or dedicated servers, when you select your domain name, you now have the option to add text records. The form is a little different, but it's basically the same process. From the drop down you can choose a CNAME or text record. You'll want to set the name, the time to live, and the text value. So for example, we could set up test text.inmotiondnstesting.com. The time to live, you can see the ones below, they've got a default of 14,400. That's the number of seconds, so it's 4 hours. So unless you have a specific reason to set it any differently, you could set it to the same number. And then after that, you would just put in whatever text data that your developer or your programmer is asking you to input. And then from there, you would just hit Add Record, and that will go ahead and add the text record for you. The next records we're going to take a look at are MX records. So what you want to do is go back to your cPanel, make sure you're at the home page of your cPanel. You can just click the home link at the top left, and then find MX entry under the mail section. So go ahead and click MX entry. And then from the drop-down list, you want to select which domain you're working with. Again, we're working with InMotionDNSTesting.com. So the first thing you have to decide is how you want the email to be routed. I highly recommend that you go ahead and just set it to automatically detect configuration, which is the default and recommended setting. But if you have a specific reason, you can go ahead and choose local mail exchanger or remote mail exchanger. Now, if you look at the bottom, it has the field or the form where you can actually add a new MX record, and then it also lists the current MX records. So in this example, we're going to put in a few examples from Google's apps using Google for your mail servers, and you're probably going to be given a list similar to this one below. You have a set of priorities and a set of mail servers. So you'll want to go through the list and add each one. So for example, we're going to copy this mail server, paste it in for the destination, and then it also has a priority. You want to make sure you add in there. For this one has a priority of 1. So make sure you have this information filled out and then hit add new record. And that's going to go ahead and add the new MX record, and you'll see it when it's done. It'll list it in the MX records section. For example, here we see the new MX record. And again, you will just go through the list, adding each of the mail servers that they've asked you to. The second one, it has a priority of 5, so we'll set the priority to 5 and add that new record there. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is that the lower the priority number, that means the higher priority it actually has. So in this case, it's going to try to deliver email to my InMotion DNS testing server rather than the Gmail one or the Google ones. So if you're going to be using external servers, make sure you go ahead and delete the existing one. That way, the only MX records that you see are going to be the ones that you've added. In this case, the Google ones. The last DNS records that we're going to take a look at are the domain keys and SPF records. So again, you'll want to go to your cPanel, click the home link at the top right, and then find the email authentication icon. It's underneath the mail section. And you could read over these to get more information about what exactly these records do. Their main goal is to help, enabling email authentication will help fight the spread of spam. So if you want to enable domain keys, by default it's disabled. All you need to do is click enable, and that's going to enable domain keys for your account. It's pretty straightforward. That's all you have to do. The next thing we're going to take a look at is SPF records. SPF records specify which servers are authorized to send email from your domain name. If you're only using our mail servers, InMotion Hosting's mail servers, then all you'll need to do is click enable, and that's going to enable the default SPF record for your account. You'll get a confirmation here which actually lists the SPF record. You don't have to do anything further at this point. It's more of just a confirmation. So go ahead and just click the go back button. Now earlier we were showing you how to add Google MX records in the event that you are going to be using Google's mail servers. Now with SPF, you'll also want to specify that those Google servers are allowed to send email on behalf of your domain name. And if you look in Google's documentation, it mentions this particular tidbit about creating an SPF record, and it says that you'll want to add _spf.google.com as a part of your SPF record. So we're going to go ahead and copy that and include list. This says that the SPF settings for all hosts you specify in this list will be included with your SPF settings. This is useful if you will be sending mail through another service, for example Mac.com, Comcast, or Google. So you'll need to hit add, paste in the value _spf.google.com and click OK, and it's gone ahead and added it there, and then click update. And it's going to give you another confirmation screen, again with the record that it added. In this case, you see it says include _spf.google.com, just like the Google documentation states, include _spf.google.com. So you now have SPF records and domain keys set up. That's pretty much for this tutorial. We've gone through, again, how to set up a record, CNAME, text records, and so forth. Not all records can be created if you're on the shared servers, for example, the text records. So if you come across any DNS records that you're having trouble getting set up, feel free to email or contact our support department.